That roofline overhang at the front, the way it floats above the windshield like a visor on a helmet, is one of the most deliberately aggressive design decisions I have seen on anything calling itself a motorhome. And the moment I saw it, I knew this concept was doing something different. Full transparency up front. What you are looking at is a fictional concept generated by AI. No manufacturer, no price tag, no delivery date. Just a vision. But the ideas embedded in this design are sophisticated enough that they deserve a serious breakdown. Here is what we are doing today. We are walking the exterior first. The face, the stance, the surface language, all of it. Then we are going inside. And I am going to build the interior from the outside in. Because the exterior is telling us a very specific story about what is happening in that living space. Then, powertrain and tech. And finally, my honest verdict, including the one thing about this concept I would change on the spot. There's also something happening at the rear of this vehicle. A detail in how the living module sits over the rear axle that I am saving until we get there. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's go. That front face is not trying to be friendly. Most motorhomes, even the expensive ones, soften their fronts. Curved bumpers, rounded headlights, an overall message that says approachable family travel. This concept is doing the opposite. The face is angular, structured, and, frankly, a little intimidating. The headlight signature runs in a sharp geometric slash. Think fighter jet HUD, not campsite welcome mat. Bronze accent lighting traces the lower bumper and wraps the fog light housings. And that warm metallic tone against the cool Arctic white and dark gray two-tone is doing something very intentional. It is saying, this is not a recreational vehicle. This is a residence that happens to move. The grille insert, dark mesh in a geometric pattern flanked by what appears to be active air management shutters, tells you this concept is thinking about aerodynamic efficiency, not just aesthetics. The side profile is where this concept makes its boldest statement about who it is for. The living module, everything behind the B-pillar, is a near-perfect architectural rectangle. Flat sides, squared shoulders, a roofline that does not slope or taper. That is an unusual choice. Most coach designers angle the rear roofline for aerodynamics. This one prioritizes interior headroom and usable cubic volume all the way to the back wall. Someone looked at this design and decided ceiling height mattered more than drag reduction at the rear. That is a very specific value judgment. The windows on the living section are large rectangular units. I count what appears to be 2 substantial side windows framed in a dark surround that creates a clean graphic break against the white body. The glass-to-body ratio here is generous but controlled. You are not looking at floor-to-ceiling greenhouse glass. This is curated visibility. Large enough to let light in and give occupants a connection to the outside, deliberate enough to maintain wall space for functional interior layouts. The paint is pearl white, not flat, not metallic, but a finish that catches directional light and shifts slightly in tone across the panel faces. In direct showroom light like this render shows, that surface is doing beautiful things. The panels seem to glow from within rather than just reflect. The contrast with the dark graphite lower body section and the warm bronze accent trim creates a three-material hierarchy that reads as genuinely premium. This is not accidental color blocking. Someone spent serious time on this palette. The undercarriage ambient lighting, that cool blue strip that runs along the lower body, is the one detail I am slightly conflicted about. It is dramatic. It reads well in a render environment. But on a real road, in real conditions, you would need to ask whether it is design or distraction. I'll come back to that in the verdict. 6 wheels. Let that sink in for a second. This concept is running a...
That windshield is raked at a more aggressive angle than most production motorhomes, closer to a performance SUV than a traditional coach. What that tells me is that the cockpit is designed to feel like a driving environment, not an office chair in a truck cab. The overhang visor above creates a framed, enclosed feel from the driver's perspective. You are not exposed to the sky. You are in something. The instrument panel, based on the face design language, is almost certainly fully digital. A continuous widescreen display arc is the only thing that would make sense at this aesthetic level. Physical switches would look wrong in here. Imagine sitting in that seat. The windshield gives you a wide horizontal panorama with controlled vertical exposure. You see the road, you see the landscape ahead, but you are not overwhelmed by light. It is the kind of cockpit that would make a 6-hour drive feel like the destination rather than the journey. This is a space that most motorhome concepts handle badly. The step over, step down, slide through transition from the driving cab to the living area is architecturally awkward in almost every production coach I have seen. Based on the exterior, this concept appears to handle it differently. The cab module and living module sit at slightly different heights. You can see it in the roofline profile, which suggests a designed transition step rather than an accidental level change. Done well, that becomes a threshold moment, a physical experience of entering a different space. The 2 large side windows in the living section are telling me something specific about the interior layout. Their positioning, centered relatively high on the body, suggests the primary seating is not immediately adjacent to the wall. The view angle from a seated position on a sofa or lounge chair would be looking outward and slightly upward, exactly the framing you want if you are parked at a coastal overlook or a mountain pass. This is a view-optimized interior, not just a functional box. The ceiling height I estimated earlier, 1.95 to 2.1 meters, changes what is possible in this space. At that height, you can stand without thinking about it. You can reach overhead storage without straining. This is the detail I mentioned in the hook. The rear of this concept. The way the living module extends fully over that dual rear axle creates something interesting. Most motorhomes position the rear bedroom directly over the rear axle, which means you are sleeping with the mechanical heartbeat of the vehicle directly below you. Tire noise, road vibration, the physical sensation of every surface change, it all travels up through that axle into the bed platform. But this concept's body geometry suggests the primary sleeping zone may be positioned forward of the rear axle, rather than over it. If the designer used the dual tag axle to extend the load platform rearward, using that rear section for storage, utility, or mechanical systems, then the sleeping quarters would sit in a vibration-reduced zone. That would be a genuinely sophisticated decision. You would wake up less.
You would sleep better. You would feel the road less. In a vehicle designed for long-distance living, that single decision changes the quality of life inside. Imagine waking up in that space. High ceiling above you. Window view to the outside. Road noise damped by distance from the axle. That is not camping. That is something else entirely. Water management in a vehicle at this scale is an engineering constraint that design cannot fully escape. But the body width here, over 2 meters internal, makes a genuinely walk-in shower feasible. Not a fold-in, crouch-under wet room. A stand-up, full-height shower. The gray water system would likely use a dedicated tank positioned in the low chassis section between the axles. That is the logical placement for mass distribution. And at this concept's apparent positioning, you would expect a closed-loop water heating system, probably integrated with the energy management platform. Every zone in a concept like this would be connected. Climate that learns your temperature preferences by zone. Lighting that responds to time of day and ambient light levels. Connectivity that manages satellite internet, mobile data aggregation,